G'day everyone, and welcome to Fixit Fingers Kreg Summer Series, project number 2. Today we are stepping up to spotted gum decking, about 15-16 meters of the stuff, and we're going to be using the miter saw on this project. Most of the cuts can be made right at the very front using a miter saw or just a circular saw if you really want to punish yourself, but there are going to be a lot of cross cuts here, and if you have one of these miter saws, then your life is going to be a lot more fun. Using a stop block is going to help you get repeatable lengths, and if you find that you don't quite have the space in order to get the long pieces of decking on the miter saw straight up, you can always cut down a rough length on your circular saw using the Kreg square cut, and then slipping up your stop block, you'll be able to get more manageable pieces. This will also help you eliminate as much waste as possible. Now, spotted gum is not a material I have used before, and it is like concrete. If you have a check on the Yanker scale here, you will see that it is up there. It's going to be punishment on your tools, so keep that in mind if you're going to copy or do the smarter thing and perhaps find yourself a slightly softer material. So following my plans, I've cut out the pieces for the legs, the stretchers, the braces, and these really long pieces are going to be the top slats. Now, they're not exact length just yet, we'll trim those down right at the very end. Very little ripping needed, but just like last time, here is my ripping jig. First I'll put a nick in it to make sure that I am exactly halfway in between that board. These thinner pieces are going to form little L shapes to give strength to my leg assemblies. Even if the wood is really hard, your saw will be able to do it. Just go slow. Running the blade through, and we get half and halves quite nicely. Well, the miter saw certainly made that a lot easier than just using the square cut like the last project. Now it's time to focus on the top. So what we're going to do is edge joint these boards. And I'm going to try a method that I haven't used before. I'm going to use the Kreg jig to use the screws as clamps effectively. Going to put some waterproof glue in here, but I'm not actually going to do anything to these edges and hope they hold together. I don't have the table saw and I don't have the jointer set up for these really long pieces. So we're going to keep it nice and easy. Before we do that though, there's a few things we have to look at with the top. The end grain. This is mostly flat sawn. In other words, the rings are finishing pretty much on either side. Most of your decking material is going to look like this. However, it's going to have a tendency to want to cup in the direction of the grain. So that's going to get higher and that's going to get lower. In order to counterbalance that, we want opposing grain so that when this one tries to bend this way and this one tries to bend this way, that they end up cancelling each other out a little bit. This one here needs to go over, and rechecking the face. Fortunately, that face is quite nice, so we're going there, 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 and this one's going to need to go over too, which is going to give me the ugly face. So I might have another play with that, but I'd rather have this pattern looking good and these have a bit of extra sanding than have to deal with cupping in the top later on. Now that's all sorted out, we put a carpenter's triangle so we can put these back in the right order and flip them over because importantly we want the pocket holes in the back. I space mine out roughly every 20 centimeters, thereabouts. These cuts were the toughest ones and they nearly destroyed my drill bit, to be honest. Going across the grain on these boards was very, very difficult. The drill bit heated up a lot. I had to give it time to cool down in between the planks. So again, choice of material, maybe not ideal, but at least we know this thing will last a very long time once she's done. When you're going through hard material like this, just take it easy. Make sure you retract the drill bit to ensure the vacuum has enough time to pull out the swarf and your life will go easier. Now this is the only edge jointing I did. I just did a bit of sanding and cleaned up the little furries on the side of the pocket holes because a slightly blunted drill bit is going to leave those behind. Here is another piece of necessity only because of the toughness of my material. My mate Kilby at Run the Grain gave me this great tip. Get a really long 3mm drill bit and you will have to pre-drill your pocket holes. Now this is not something that you would normally ever see done because the screws are self-tapping. But I did a lot of tests. It wasn't safe enough to drive without pre-drilling because I was just getting split out 50% of the time. I did a Merbo gate for my brother, and I did not pre-drill once, and I didn't have a single issue with that, and it's a pretty tough wood too, but it just shows you have to work to your material, and pocket holes and spotted gum don't seem to be the best friends. However, it is coming along quite nicely, and as we pull out the polyurethane glue, because it's about the only thing that will stick to this spotted gum, it's quite an oily timber. The regular PVA-based glues will not work very well. Lastly, it is essential that you use the fine threaded screws, or you will have no hope in hardwood. Look for the F on the box. So the glue will keep the water out, screws will act as clamps, and even though these haven't been edge jointed, I'm hopeful they're going to stay together nice and tight.
Now here's the real beauty. You take the clamps off.
Oh, that weighs a ton.
It's a learning experience with a spotted gum. Not sure if I'll do it again, but it's working okay.
Now, polyurethane glue has the nasty habit of expanding an awful lot. So we get out the awl and we run it along the gap in a very satisfying globular gathering glue extraction exercise. And this was actually far too much fun. I just kept going back for more. It's like scratching off boogers. Ooh yeah. Now, even if you do this several times with the method to lubricate, you're going to find that once it dries, you'll have to come back another time, but you'll have a lot less to do if you get rid of most of it as it bubbles up slowly. Switching to the rails and this more traditional placement of pocket holes, it was heaps easier to drive through these holes, and in the middle piece, I did something tricky and put them on both sides, just for funsies. Putting the leg assemblies together, they're getting the cross-grain drills as well, and went back to being tough. Now, on my design, you are going to have a little bit of a tiny lip on the edge there, but it didn't really affect it, and you won't see them in the final product. If you had slightly thicker boards, mine were 86mm. If you had a 90mm board, I reckon you'd probably just about get away with not having that little half circle on the top. Here are my leg assemblies going together. Pre-drilling again, just to make sure we don't get any splits. And this is really important. Make sure you have the clutch turned on and you're on screwdriver mode on your drill. Do not use an impact driver. It will overdrive and you will again probably get splits in your wood. So learn to use the clutch. Mine was on about a number 8. Breaking out the right angle clamp, and these leg assemblies went together in absolutely no time at all. So we've got 2 for the ends, check square, and then the one for the middle, which I turned into a T section instead of an L section to keep everything nice and balanced. Get creative with your clamping, and then if you want, you can use a router just to take off the sharp edges. So I put the sharp edge from the rip cut on the outside and then rounded that over on my leg pieces to keep them nice and handleable. Once you've got all that done, it actually comes together really, really quickly. But to make it even faster, when I ran out of screws and had to pop into Cabot to grab some more, I also picked up myself these nifty little corner clamps, also from Kreg, of course, and I've wanted them for a long time, and this project finally gave me the excuse to pick them up. Geez, they make this part of assembly, which otherwise would be a really tricky clamping job, almost instantaneous. Something else I don't use terribly often is the little block here. It comes with the master kit in the K4 and the K5, and it's designed to let you do this. Now, I was just figuring out as I go how I was going to attach the top, and I decided that a single pocket hole in the middle and using these figure 8 clips on the outside was the way to go. This is because my solid panel is going to move. It will expand and contract with the temperature and the seasons, so having these slightly movable clips on the outside will allow them to do this, and anchored by the central pocket hole, which will hold it steady in the middle. So the pocket holes are really the strength, and those figure 8 clips are going to give it the flexibility so that things don't start cracking and pulling apart as the wood moves over time. With the leg assembly all done, we can return our attention to the top, scratch away the rest of the polyurethane glue, and I have absolutely no idea what's going on here. Far too much sanding for this little Fixit fingers. At Cabot, I also picked up these track clamps for my Aquadeck, and they're very handy in situations such as this where the track is far too long to safely balance on my little table, but I did want to take off and square up the end there, and the clamp is holding that down really nicely. One thing that would also help is setting your circular saw to the correct depth, because on this first pass I was about 1.5 millimeters too shallow. No worries, quick check, fix it up, bang it through, and we'll have a couple of square ends on this bench seat. There'll just be a tiny overhang on the design. Now it is outdoor furniture, and I decided to go with some Aquadeck. It needs to be reapplied every year, but it's super easy to put on, and you can always touch it up whenever you want to if you're experiencing a bit of weather. To keep the end grain out of the water that gathers on the balcony after heavy rain, I put on some plastic feet, installed my figure 8s to hold on the top. Make sure you back them off 1/4 of a turn after you've screwed them in tight. Position the legs on top of the upside down table just as we like it. Finish installing the figure 8s, which I like to do by hand again, just to control the tension on those screws so they're not too tight. And lastly, lock it down with the pocket holes in the center. If you're enjoying the Kreg Summer Series here on Fixit Fingers, please do consider subscribing to the channel and give us a like. And don't forget that for all of your Kreg gear here in Australia, I am a Cabot affiliate, and you can use the link in my description to pick up your Kreg gear. If you do, tell me in the comments and I will give you a shout out on the next video to say thanks. Alright, she's all together, but we're not done just yet. While you're enjoying these beauty shots, keep a look underneath, because next week we're going to finish off this project with a few rolling storage carts. So we've got a bench seat to begin with, but wifey does want to have some soil and things put away safely, and that'll be the next part of this project. I'll catch you then, thanks for tuning in, see you later.